hero. He was their Messiah. He was the one they've been looking for. So they cheered. A few days later, they cheered. On Friday, they said, crucify him, crucify him, crucify him. On Friday, they said, get away with him. We don't want him anymore. He's a loser. Kill him. Be done with him. Get rid of him. There was jeering on Friday. Mocking. Taunting. Hatred. From cheers to jeers. And some of the same people who were cheering on Palm Sunday were jeering on Good Friday. Some of the same people went from cheers to jeers. That's what happened on Palm Sunday. Let's revisit that scene. Jesus comes into Jerusalem that day, riding not on a fancy chariot. He came into Jerusalem that day riding not on a white stallion, but he came into Jerusalem that day riding on a donkey.
This is my security blanket. Before I start, I want to make a comment. Jessica, you made reference to the heifer project, that you're going to buy a cow. Amazingly enough, and I never cease to wonder at the way things work out, because this presentation that I'm going to give you was written by David Gill, who was our pastor over 20 years ago, and he left our church to go to be with Heifer Project. When he found out I was doing these things, he sent me one he had written. So that's what I'm going to present to you today. Before I start, I want to ask you, how many of you have pets? Hey, I see a lot of hands. How many of you talk to them? How many think they talk back to you? Amazing, isn't it, what we think of pets? So this is not going to be such a hard sell after all. But first of all, I need to put on my costume. You have to use your imagination in this. I suppose you think this is kind of strange, unless, of course, you're used to a donkey giving you sermons. But if you could have been with me during the things of just this past week, you might start to believe a lot of things you had never believed in before. And what's more, it might not be all that shocking to you if you humans weren't so downright stubborn. That's right, stubborn. Why, we donkeys have been able to communicate with each other ever since our Creator put us on this good earth. And I dare say we do a better job of communicating than you humans. After all, how many broken homes, how much crime, delinquency, litigation, unemployment do you find among donkeys? And you call us stubborn? Well, we donkeys have an old saying. Animals who live in glass stalls shouldn't throw stones. So if the hoof fits, wear it. There's another reason why you shouldn't be so surprised at my ability to speak. If you have any recollection of your Bible stories, you'll surely remember my famous ancestor. He provided dependable, fuel-efficient transportation for Balaam the prophet. He also, I might add, saved the prophet's life, even as the prophet was taking out his frustrations on my ancestor's life. The Creator enabled my ancestor to speak out loud, in Hebrew no less, and he asked Balaam why he was getting such a beating. It was then the Lord opened Balaam's eyes and allowed him to see what my four-footed forefather had seen all along, namely an angel barring the path. And you call us stubborn. Well, I hope by now you're beginning to worth your while to listen to what this donkey has to say. And maybe, just maybe, the Lord can break through your stubbornness and open your eyes, just like he did Balaam's. This has been some week for a young donkey like me. And as I share the recent events with you, I do so with mixed emotions and some gnawing questions of my own. But one thing is sure, it's been a week of my life I'll never forget. For just days ago, I carried upon my strong back a very special king. Maybe I ought to back up to the very beginning. It was only about a year ago that my mother brought me into this world. She's one of the many donkeys owned by Jeremias, a rather well-to-do merchant up in Bethany. My first few months as a newborn foal were not untypical. I gradually got my skinny, oversized legs to stay put underneath me, but every once in a while they'd get all tangled up and down I'd go. We foals are allowed to be pretty carefree during that first year of our life. We spend most of it just tagging along after our mothers as they shoulder their workloads. We're also allowed to frolic with our friends in the rock-strewn pastures around the village, playing our favorite games, such as tag, and see who can wake up the human. Our owners don't mind, though. They know that any investment they make in us will be handsomely repaid in the long run, for we are much in demand. Our sure-footed steadiness carries riders. Our strong backs support heavy loads, and when we're put into a harness, we can pull even heavier loads.